Hello and welcome back to my garden. Today I'm going to be planting something very different. If you've been watching my videos as of late, I've been planting up a lot of seedlings that I've started from seed in my greenhouse there. Sorry, it's a little windy today, and normally I'd be wearing my other hat with a stiffer brim, but I'm using that hat today to try to keep the camera cool because it's going to be a little toasty today. I think it's supposed to get up to like 75. All of this breeze is making it feel pretty nice. I'm getting off topic. Over the weekend, I went to a local plant sale and my wonderful wife purchased some wonderful plants for me. I got a Carolina lupine, nothing much to look at there, but I've tried growing that variety from seed several times. In fact, I think I'm trying again and I'm not having, well, I think I'm having a little luck with that right now, but we will wait and see. She got me what was the other thing she got me? Pineapple sage. Now I got one last year at the same plant show, just later in the year, and I planted that out in the garden. Now it did grow, it thrived, but unfortunately after the dieback, it hasn't come back up yet, just maybe because the ground is still a little too cold for it. It is a salvia, so it may need the temperature of the soil to be at a certain point before it re-sprouts, but in case it didn't, she got me another one, and that one I put on a pot on the deck. And then I got a Aztec lily. It's supposed to be in the Amaryllis family, allegedly, maybe, possibly. Where's my little dog? Just always gotta check on that little dog. I've never grown that before. I'm probably gonna put it into a pot up on the back deck. And if it does flower this year, and doing my homework says it may not flower this year, so it won't be much to look at, but if it does flower this year, it'll look something like this. And of course, I'll take pictures and post it on Instagram or the YouTube posts page, or may even show you here. But the other couple of things that she got me were things that, well, one of them I wanted. The other one I didn't know I wanted, but then she wanted it, so we wound up getting it. And I'm not opposed to it. It was just something that wasn't on I didn't even know it existed. So the first thing I got was a banana tree. Now this is a hardy banana tree. It may produce fruit at some point in its life, but I didn't get it for that, and the fruit is unedible. It's very bitter apparently, but I wanted this for the ornamental value. Just this tall tree with these big goofy leaves. I don't know, just something about it that I really like. Now this plant, because I've been growing as an 8B, I shouldn't have to dig up. From what I was reading, even if all the top growth did die back, it would put up new pups the following year, as long as the roots didn't freeze or get damaged. And I think this is originally from Japan, if I remember my homework correctly. I was looking at a lot of stuff on the interwebs about all these plants, and I can't remember all these facts, but this was one of the plants on my plant wish list. So that is going here in the flower garden instead of the orchard, because I want it here in the flower garden. The other one, which we're going to be planting today, which I'm going to have to take extraordinary measures with, is Bear's Breeches. Yeah, weird name. The Latin name for it is Acanthus mollis. If I'm pronouncing that right, I'll put it here on the screen. It's got these big, dark, wonderful leaves on it. It will grow here. It is apparently a native plant. Puts up this crazy tall flower spike. This is what it looks like. And the leaves are supposed to get pretty large, and it's supposed to get, overall, I think it's supposed to get, what, 3 to 6 feet clumping? So that's a pretty big plant. But this plant has one small or major drawback. It can grow aggressively. If you grow in part shade or full shade, it doesn't grow quite as aggressively, but it also won't send up that tall flower spike. If you grow it in full sun, the flower spike can get 6 to 8 feet, allegedly. Unfortunately, this propagates by rhizome, and they will run, take over your whole garden, which don't want that. So with this plant, what I'm going to attempt to do is put each one into its own pot that are bottomless. Now the reason I'm doing bottomless pots is that apparently this plant has a large taproot. So once you plant this plant in the ground, you're essentially never going to get rid of it unless you use like a glyphosate on it, or every time it sends up a new leaf, you rip that out, and eventually the root itself will get so weak, theoretically, possibly, maybe, it will stop growing, it'll die. But by doing the bottomless pots, I'm thinking, and this is, if you guys have a thought on this, please feel free to leave your comments below. If you've ever grown this plant before, let me know. But it will stop the rhizomes from spreading outward. It will help keep them contained, yet allow that taproot to go down. And if I can keep the rhizomes contained, theoretically, I can keep the plant from taking over the entire garden. This is my theory. We shall see what happens. And where I'm going to plant this is right here in one of the new sections of the flower bed. Now, you guys may have remembered, if you've been watching this for a while, if not, you can go back and watch those videos if you so wish and desire. I finished out the border layout, as it were, for the flower garden last year, but I never completely filled in or mulched enough this area right here. So what had happened is grasses and weeds start coming up, and I already know I have enough grasses and weeds. So what I decided to do was just cover the entire area with this black weed fabric to help keep all that back down until I was ready to start planting up in this area. These new plants, this is perfect for this new area because a lot of the other areas are filling out, and especially with the Bear's Breeches, those leaves will bully out or push out many of the other plants in the other areas. So I think this will be a good place. So what I'm thinking is that I'm gonna pull back an 8-foot section here. I'm gonna put the banana tree right here towards the back of the border, and then I'm gonna put the two Acanthus, Bear's Breeches right here next to it. Now, they say to plant it back towards the back of a border. My border is only approximately 8 feet deep. And I say approximately because about 2 foot of it will eventually be taken up with a hedge. Now, I have ordered some plants for that, and I will talk about that more in the future. Figure then I only have about 6 feet. The banana tree can sit back with the shrubbery here in the back with the hedge line. That I'm not worried about. In fact, I think that might be a little, I think that might look cool if it's sort of like enclosed or partially enclosed or just sitting right up against the hedge. I think that might be fun. But then again, these things get 3 to 6 feet wide. So I think that will fill in this entire space, and there really won't be much room or any room for planting in the front of the bed. Maybe there will be in time. I have to see how these plants grow. Now, according to the interwebs, the banana tree will put on 2 to 4 feet of growth per year, but not the first year. And the same thing with the Acanthus, Bear's Breeches. They will put on growth, but the first year is sort of slow. So like many plants, your first year job is to keep them alive. The second year they start to grow, and the third year they thrive. That's the general rule of thumb. That's what I've always been told, and that's what I've observed, is that first year you just try to keep the plant alive. It probably doesn't put on a lot of growth, but by the third year they're really taking off and then growing quite a bit. So let me pull back this weed fabric and let's take a look what we got here. Helping to hold down the weed fabric are some more concrete edging pieces. I will talk more about these in the future as to where they're going and what I'm going to use them for. So as you can see here, there's a lot of, I see quite a few dead weeds. There's a lot of pine bark mulch, which is fine. And there's some weeds on the ends. So what I'm gonna do real quick is I'm going to do some weeding off camera so I'm not boring you guys. And then we're gonna start digging holes. So I've done the weeding along the front and the back where some of that grass was coming up. And I had forgotten that there was one of the plants I wanted to plant today, and this is a good location for it. This is a cup plant. Apparently it can be a tad, I don't want to say aggressive, but it will flower, and those seeds will tend to get kind of everywhere. So I'm not totally opposed to that, but being just a regular plant, as it were, with seeds getting wherever they're going to go, self-seeding as it were, I think I can pretty much manage that. It's not going to be it shouldn't be too much of a problem for either me or any future gardener. So the banana tree is going to go in this hole right here, and this hole right here is where I'm going to put the cup plant. If you guys remember, I put down some seed over here for some sort of hollyhock, I believe. Yes, pink hollyhock, right in this spot here. So hopefully we'll have the hollyhock here. The cup plant can get up to 8 feet, 4 to 8 feet tall. So probably this year it only gets maybe 4 foot, but in the subsequent years may get higher. It is tolerant of many soils. That being said, I'm going to help it out a bit by putting some compost in the hole. Then, oops, I will look at the side of the pot. It's been here a while. Holy moly, it's got some, it's really root bound here. Maybe I can just tease out some of these roots. There we go. Gently just trying to pry them apart. If you break some of the roots while prying them apart, it's not the end of the world. The plant will grow new roots. All right, I think I've mangled this enough. The other thing I want to do is put back a little bit of the native soil here, which is very clay-like, silty. Mix it in with the new compost, because there are nutrients in the native soil. Drop that there. I want it a little higher. I dug a pretty deep hole because I want the plant to have pretty good drainage. And when we get torrential downpours, the ground can flood pretty quickly because, again, it's what I'm standing on top of is a lot of silt and clay. Let's get some more compost in there. Push that down. So this was one of those plants that we got at the plant sale. Just thought it was really neat. I like the fact that it can get so tall. And that's one of my goals this year, is to add more height to all of the garden beds. Since I don't have this hedge here and we get a lot of north-south winds, which will be going this way, I may have to stake the plant at some point. But we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. The banana plant is going to get a whole different treatment. So the hole right here for the banana tree is about 1 foot deep. Now, from my understanding, from what I've read on the interwebs, and I've never grown a banana tree before, but they prefer good drainage, which is not something I necessarily have here. So I made the full hole about 1 foot deep. The next thing I'm going to do is put some pea gravel and bark on the bottom. Now, theoretically, and I'm going to mix it with the native soil. The bark will eventually break down over time, probably in the next year or so. It'll add organic matter deeper into the hole. So as the plant pushes its roots down deeper, it'll find that organic matter, and that organic matter will help retain moisture. But the ground's already going to be wet if we get a lot of rain anyway, so just a little bit more. And the coarseness of the bark will help, at least for this year, allow any excess water to drain away. And then I'm going to add in compost. A lot more than that, but I'm going to start with that. Now, I've seen a lot lately on the interwebs and from various experts where they say you want the hole twice as wide as the plant itself, that the pot it's in. And correct me if I'm wrong, guys, but from my understanding is if you dig a super deep hole and then you put your plant in, the theory is that that compost underneath is going to settle. Your plant will then settle and be in a bowl, which is not what you want. The thing I'm going to do, which is what I've done with many of my other trees, is I'm going to plant this a bit higher. So it'll be sticking up, so the top of the pot here will be sticking up above the grade of the flower bed. So when it does settle, eventually, theoretically, it'll be at the grade of the flower bed. But it'll also be all that free space beneath it, so when we get those 6 inches of rain during a tropical storm or whatever, the plant itself doesn't get oversaturated and drown. I think banana trees coming from the tropics can handle that, but I want to give it as good a home as I possibly can. This is pretty high, which is what I want. Also, as I add compost to this bed and mulch in this bed, it will come up in height. Eventually it all settles and breaks down, but I think for now, I think this is going to be a good height for it. So let's pop this guy out. Hopefully it comes out easy. Oh yeah. That tree in there. Good. Want to mix in some of this native. Start mixing in the compost. I'm going to give it some water. And I'll pull back this mulch. There we go. My banana tree is planted. We shall see what happens over the course of the year. Hopefully I don't kill it. Hopefully it grows, thrives, and survives. Off camera, I'm going to dig 2 really big holes for my acanthus, and then we'll plant those. Many minutes later, I've dug my 2 holes. So what I've done is, again, 2 bottomless pots. Now these pots are going to be a little higher than the ground level. That is intentional because A, the compost inside will settle, the ground around them will settle, so that's fine. And call me paranoid, but I really don't want to take the risk of one of these plants, if they are as aggressive as the interwebs say, starting to grow over the lip of the pot. You can hide the top of the pot with mulch. In fact, that's what I'll probably do at the end, maybe. We'll see. The other thing that I'm not doing, I'm not going to add a lot of that pea gravel and bark and stuff to the base, but what I did was I broke up some of that clay, and over time the compost that I put into these pots will naturally break down. The earthworms will drag it down into the ground, and all that good stuff will happen. So theoretically, in the next 2 to 3 years, the ground beneath these pots will be pretty nice. The earthworms will draw a lot of that compost down into the ground, and they'll be pretty good. I think. Also, these pots, and hopefully it doesn't become a problem, have holes on the side, which also help with drainage. So really the purpose of these pots is just to try to prevent those rhizomes from spreading out. We'll see how well my theory works. If you guys have Bear's breeches or Acanthus, yeah, that word, let me know if you've done anything like this or how it grows in your garden. Let me start filling these in. Yeah, all right. So I got the area mostly backfilled, and now I'm gonna put these plants in the ground here. And they got pretty good roots. Let's stick that in there. There's one. There we go. There's two. Hopefully these ugly plastic pots help prevent those rhizomes from spreading. This area looks like a small war zone. So let me clean it up, do some mulching, and then we'll see what it looks like. That was some good planting for today. I have my cup plant over here, hardy banana here. I have two Bear's breeches or Acanthus, I can't pronounce the name. Oh, I have them there. Hopefully this guy here grows up to, I think they're supposed to get 12, 15 feet tall, which would be freaking awesome. Such a wonderful piece here in the flower garden. Very weird to be in a flower garden, but this is what I wanted. I didn't want it to be out in the orchard. I wanted it to be here to add some sort of crazy focal. And with these Bear's breeches, I think this area will look this little section right here will look fairly tropical. You'll have the very tall and yellow and flowery cup. I think these are like a purplish, whitish flower. I'll put it up on the screen here again. And then of course the tall height and the wonderful leaves of the banana tree. Could do some companion planting in here this year because I don't think these Bear's breeches are going to get very big, but I'm not sure what to plant. If you guys have any suggestions or if you guys grow these plants and you have your thoughts and feelings, please leave those comments below. In the meantime, I would say this section for this year is going to be done unless you guys have some really good companion planting suggestions until these guys get so big that they overwhelm the space themselves. If you guys haven't checked out my website, go over to growinggreenfinger.com. I've got all sorts of good stuff there, from projects that I've done and how I did them to resource links to all sorts of websites, videos, stores, books, etc. Got my own little story of the garden and what I'd like to do with it and where it came from and where it's going to. And if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe, click that bell icon to be notified when I do post a new video. And this way you can follow along to see how all these plants grow, develop. I'm in growing zone 8B. They might grow out of control. I don't know. But it's going to be interesting to see what happens. So with all that being said, I'm going to catch you guys on the next one. Bye-bye. Ow! Oh, God. Oh, boy.